This episode presents an adaptation of the classic fairy tale, Sleeping Beauty, except with a bit of a twist. Instead of being asleep for 100 years, our princess can't fall asleep. Not to worry though, she's got a bit of magic on her side. Before we get started, cozy yourself up in bed. Take some deep breaths, inhaling, pausing for a moment at the top, and then exhaling slowly. Just continue with that cycle of breath for a few rounds and let your exhale be a bit longer than your inhale. This tells your body that it's time to relax. Gently scan your body from top to bottom. Take your time and notice if there's any remaining tension. If you find any, just pause for a moment and breathe into that area of your body. Give it permission to relax. Now, let's begin our story. Once upon a time, in a land far, far away, there lived a king and queen. They were a happy couple. They had a beautiful castle sitting high up on a hill. They had shiny crowns and velvety purple cloaks. Everything around them was quite regal. They appreciated what they had and knew they had a good life. But something was about to make their lives even better. The king and queen were expecting a child, a baby girl to be precise. A royal baby was certainly something to celebrate. But the queen worried about one thing. She had always been somewhat of a dreamer. She could spend hours and hours dreaming about the future or considering the past. Sometimes she forgot to pay attention to the present, missing the wonders right in front of her eyes. She wanted her daughter to be grounded and present, to stop and smell the flowers, to see the world as it is, rather than as it was or as it might be. The queen had once heard about a grounding spell for people prone to daydreaming. She searched far and wide, but couldn't find it. She consulted magic books and talked to wizards and warlocks to no avail. She tried herbs, potions, and tinctures. But nothing could guarantee her daughter would be different from her. Just as she was about to lose hope, the queen had an idea. When she was younger, she'd heard stories about 7 magical fairies who had the power to help those in need. One evening, when the nightshade plants began to bloom, the queen sat by her bed in the light of the full moon. she called to the fairies to help her. Within seconds, 7 tiny dots of light flew one by one in through her window, like a rainbow of fireflies. Red, blue, green, yellow, purple, grey, and white. As they landed, they grew bigger and bigger until they were the same size as the Queen. "You called for us," they said in unison. The Queen nodded and told the fairies about her worries. The fairies shook their heads, acknowledging the Queen's request. They would return once the child was born. With a wave of their wands, they shrunk back into colourful specks of light and flew out the window. The Queen was so relieved, and she lay down to bed without a single worry. After much discussion, they decided to name the child Zella. She would be the most perfect princess in the land, and she would want for nothing. The day Zella was born, the King and Queen saw her tiny little hands and her chubby little cheeks and experienced a love they had never known before. And so, they did what all kings and queens would do. They decided to throw a party. It would be the grandest party ever thrown in the kingdom, and all to celebrate the new princess. And the guests of honour would, of course, be the 7 fairies. The night of the party, visitors came from across the kingdom to celebrate the little Zella's birth. They dressed in the finest suits and skirts and danced the whole night long. The fairies, though, were nowhere to be seen. The King and Queen were worried their invitations had gone astray. What would the fairies think if they didn't know they'd been invited? But then, just as the clock struck midnight, 7 dots of light flew in through the ballroom window like fireflies. In a whirl of sparkles, they transformed into the 7 fairies, standing in the middle of the dance floor. The yellow fairy tapped her wand on her hand and turned to face the crowd. "As is proper when a new princess is born, we've come with gifts for the babe," she said. The yellow fairy waved her wand twice in a circle and said, "From me, she will have the gift of happiness." As she spoke, a beam of yellow light leaped from the tip of her wand and landed squarely on the little baby's forehead. The baby's eyes lit up. The green fairy spoke next and waved her wand twice in a circle. "From me, she will have the gift of patience." The green light touched the baby on the forehead and she sighed, content. The blue fairy waved her wand twice in a circle and said, From me, she will have the gift of good humor. The baby giggled. The red fairy waved her wand twice in a circle and said, From me, she will have the gift of true love. The baby's cheeks flushed. The purple fairy waved her wand twice in a circle and said, From me, she will have the gift of common sense. The baby sat a little straighter. And then things got a bit strange. The grey fairy, who was the oldest of the 7, spoke next. Now, the grey fairy had always been very kind, and the other fairies cared for her deeply. But they had to admit she'd become a bit dotty in old age. She was as happy as ever, but her mind wasn't as razor sharp as it once had been. As she waved her wand twice in a circle, the other fairies held their breath. I know you're worried your child will be a daydreamer, she said. And so, from me, the child will have the gift of never missing a moment of life's wonders. The king and queen beamed with delight. This sounded like the most thoughtful gift of them all. But the other fairies were nervous. What strange phrasing, Yellow whispered to Blue. Why did she put it that way? Green asked. Oh dear, said Red. As the grey fairy said the words, a grey beam shot from the tip of her wand. It zigzagged across the room, bouncing off 2 chandeliers and a gold platter before landing on the baby's forehead. The baby's eyes widened, her pupils dilated. Something had happened. The gift had indeed been given, but none of the fairies were quite sure what it would do. The white fairy, being the last in line, tried her best to patch things up. From me, the child will have the gift of good luck, she said, hoping it would be enough to cover all the bases. The baby clenched her little fists and squealed with delight. The ballroom filled with applause for the fairies, who took a bow and transformed back into a rainbow of fireflies, fluttering out the window into the night. Zella was a very happy baby. She never cried. But there was one thing that set her apart from all the other babies in the realm. Zella didn't sleep. Many babies sleep at inconvenient times or turn their days to nights, but this wasn't what Zella did. Zella simply did not sleep at all. And she didn't cry about it either. From dawn till dusk, and back again, Zella was wide awake. She watched every butterfly. She noticed every bird singing in the windowsill. She smelled every sweet bun baking in the oven. She heard every note from a guitar. But she never, ever slept. Her parents tried everything to get her to sleep. They got her fluffier blankets. They got her pillows. They made special sleep sacks and tried potions and spells. But the baby wouldn't sleep. Her eyes were wide, bright and attentive, which was wonderful, but they were that way all the time. It took an army of nannies to help with Zella as she grew, for she never, ever tired. As a toddler, she walked and toddled all over the castle grounds 24 hours a day. When she turned 4, she loved to colour in her colouring book, and she coloured 24 hours a day. At 5, she began flute and dance lessons, and she would play her flute and dance around the ballroom 24 hours a day. Needless to say, her parents were tired. Her nannies were tired.